Hi, creative friends. This is Rhea, and thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to be doing kind of an experiment today, and I'm still working in my brown paper craft composition notebook. But what I'm going to do is I am going to work in a very experimental way. Like it's going to be just, hey, we're just going to see what happens. And I'm going to be using colors as my testing ground. And what I mean by that is this is a warm ground. It is a neutral warm ground because it's brown. So it's not, say, like a red. Red would be a very warm to hot ground depending on exactly the color of it. But this over here is neutral. It's a brown color, but it's still very warm. So what I'm going to do is on one side, I'm going to use cool colors, and on one side, I'm going to use hot colors. And I'm only going to introduce very, very little of the opposing color. And I'm trying not to make this confusing, but if I work side by side, we can glean a lot of information as opposed to me doing a spread that's hot and then doing a spread that's cool. So I'll explain more as we go along. But what I've done is I have put some very warm to hot colors on my palette here. This is a cad yellow deep, I think, and this is a cad red light, which reads as orange, and this is an alizarin crimson, which is a red, but it does have blue undertones. So this is going to be my warm palette, and I might add a pink or another yellow or something like that as I go along, but this is going to be the base of it. And then for my cools, I'm only going to use a blue Stabilo, and that's going to be my warm to hot palette. And then for my cool palette, I am going to use a blue, and these are just cheap paints. It is this is called Ink Spot, and it's by Folk Art, and this is my Hauser light green, and it's by Americana. Very, very cheap paints. They probably cost under $2. And this is going to be my cool, and I have my chalk paint in ink, which is a Payne's Gray, and I have this cashew in also chalk paint, and that's going to be my cool palette. And then for my warms, I'm going to use this Stabilo, which is an orangey red Stabilo. So also, before I forget, I was asked about what specific paints and paint colors, etc. I use in my videos, and I made a few videos on color. And if you go to my playlist and look under the colors section, it's going to pull up these specific brands, the names, etc. And I don't put that information for every single video because it would just be really tedious. So if anybody has any questions, then I welcome them. But if you go under my playlist, if you go to my playlist section, it's going to be like I have a whole bunch of videos under color. And okay, I'm just going to dive right in here. So I'm going to use this as my warm side, this as my cool side. So for my cool side, I'm going to be using this as my only warm color. And like I said, this is like very experimental, and I'm curious to see how, they're going to be different as well. I am really interested. So I'm just kind of making some marks, and now I'm going to use my blue Stabilo on the other side. And I'm going to try to do like very similar marks and proportions, etc., because I really want to see the differences. So now I'm going to start laying down my cools on this side. And the color of your ground, if you're working on a colored substrate, is absolutely 100% going to influence the colors that you use, the combinations of colors that you use, and the proportions. Because this is not white, it is acting as a color in your painting or background or whatever. So I hope I'm making sense in conveying what I'm trying to convey. If this was white, then you're starting from a different vantage point than if you're using a colored substrate. And so this is my cool side. This is my warm to hot side. And I'm gonna add some green to the mix here. And I'm really loving this actually. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to this side and I'm gonna start applying some of my hot colors on here, and we're just gonna see, like, you know, how different they are. Because normally, say if I'm working on this color, which is warm, I am gonna tend to want to gravitate towards using a lot of neutrals. And I'm gonna show you here what I mean in a minute. So see, I'm gonna gravitate towards a lot of the blues, the blacks, and even the cashew, which is a warm neutral, but I'm not generally going to use like really bright colors. And if I do, they're gonna be used sparingly, but this is an experimental kind of a spread. So we're just gonna see here how this pans out. So I can tell you that even though I absolutely love, love, love hot colors, my first inclination is hot, hotter, and hottest. And I have to, you know, make a conscious decision to add the cools. I can tell you that right off the bat, I am gravitating towards this spread a lot more than this spread because I feel like this is too hot. There's no tension. But, you know, we're still early on in the piece, so, you know, we'll see what happens here. And I still have this cad red light on my brush on purpose because I want to make a different kind of an orange, I guess. So I'm still sticking with the orange, but I am going to introduce the yellow here in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to clean my brush out here. And now I want to put some of the yellow in here, like a clean yellow, not an orangey yellow. So I'm going to go in and just like bring this in here. So yeah, I instinctively want to start adding some warms onto this page, and I want to start adding some cools onto this page, but I'm not going to because this is an experiment. And so we're just going to stick with the, you know, just with the colors that I've laid out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the ink, which is a Payne's Gray, to this cool side here. And I'm just gonna see, like, is this going to perhaps change it a little bit? And what I'm going to do for interest is I am going to use the cashew to make some marks on here. And that's going to, you know, just bring some interest to this area here. And I'm going to repeat the pattern. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the alizarin crimson onto this page right here. Now, I do love this alizarin crimson, especially on this warm colored ground here. I'm really loving that. But as you can see, and I love the hot colors. I mean, I gravitate towards the hot colors, but this is looking very, very unbalanced, and so is this. This needs, now this looks better to me because I have the warm of the page that's adding a little bit of warmth to the page, but over here, all of this is too hot. It's too warm, so I'm gonna get my blue Stabilo out here. It's looking so unbalanced to me. I know I'm supposed to be working on this side here, but I'm just feeling like I have to add some cools to the mix here. So I hope that I'm illustrating how color is so relative. And I talked about this in another video of mine where I said, you know, everything on the page works with everything else. Like nothing exists in a vacuum, and all the elements work off of each other. It's kind of like a symphony, if you will. Like every part is important. They're like puzzle pieces, you know. If you don't have one piece, then it's not going to work. So even so, this is too warm for me. There needs to be some balancing. So I'm going to add my orange here. So you guys, I'm going to tell you right now that even though I love hot colors, I am liking this side a lot more than this side because this side is looking to be too hot. Even though I put some of the blue Stabilo and, you know, it's like some of this is reading as green because it mixed in with the yellow. This feels unbalanced as well. But I am liking this side a lot more than this side. Now, let me see if I can work on it a little bit more here. I'm just getting rid of the paint on my brush. And there we go. So I am gonna add a little more blue here. And I think I'm even gonna put some collage down and see what that does. But I'm still gonna stick with the colors that I initially laid down. So let me see here. So that has blue and green. So let's see what that does, if it changes anything here. Put that over there. And like I said, this is like an experiment. Now that does add some interest, and I'm not going to glue it down because, like I said, I'm just doing this for an experiment. And now I need some reds and oranges. But that has neutrals, so I'm going to put that over there. And that's a great thing about collage as well, is that you can just like move the pieces around. You don't have to glue them down. You know, when you're working with color, you can experiment that way. You don't need to stick something down. So it's a lot easier. Okay, so, okay. This is like really fun to experiment like this. Now this piece is very big, so I'm gonna tear it a little bit and put it like so. And so I feel as if that livened things up quite a bit, in the sense that there is a little bit of variation in the colors. But again, this is too hot for me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take these pieces and switch them around, and we're going to see how different they look. And I'm just going to kind of go like so. And I can tell you that this looks a lot more balanced to me, because I'm offsetting some of the warms here with cools and neutrals, and I'm offsetting some of the cools here with warms. So I hope that I have illustrated how color is so relative, not only to the other colors that I'm putting down, but also to the proportions that you're using. And because I'm using a colored ground, it's just made more obvious, but this holds true even if you're using a white background. So if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.